You heard the scripture that this group picked out to be our theme for our mission trip from Matthew chapter 4. Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. This group spent 31 hours one way on an Amtrak train. Let me just tell you, when you are on an Amtrak train, everybody smells a little bit, right? You find really creative ways to sleep. If you're Brady, you lay on the chair like this. There's pictures of it, I promise. You learn to play board games and Phase 10, and you also learn a whole lot more about each other. I just told these students that I am so proud of them, and it's been my pleasure for the last 4.5 years to be their pastor. I've watched them grow from 4.5 years. The oldest ones were in junior high when I came. Sam and Brady were junior high, and the rest of you were third graders. They were a whole lot smaller than me. Most of them have grown a little bit, and it has been my pleasure, and I'm so proud of who they are becoming. That being said, we went and we worked with Kaleo Missions in Portland, and we partnered with different nonprofits. And we had 2 different groups. We had the high school boys with the junior high girls, and the high school girls with the junior high boys, which helped maintain the junior high rowdiness, because if you were Jane and Tony and myself and Andrew in a car with all the junior high kids, I think a few of you had that opportunity too. There were a few times where we wanted to pull our hair out, right? We also learned through Gail and Amy and Lisa to offer them lollipops. You think it was just because you were good, right? And got lollipops, and we learned that it was to keep them quiet. But when they weren't quiet, they had wonderful insights about what we were doing. And so I invite them to share about some of the organizations that we shared about, and then a little bit, so they're answering 2 questions. What is the ministry they served with? And why was it important to them? What did they get out of it? So I'm going to invite our first 2 up, Mr. Chase Wickersham and Mr. Peyton Albright.
Okay, so we are going to talk about MTI, which stands for Medical Teams International. MTI is about providing help and medical services to victims of poverty and natural disasters, and we saw many things when we went there, and here are just a few.
First thing we saw was a bunch of maps where natural disasters hit, and pictures of each place. One of the most affecting parts of this room is the pictures of kids drew of the disaster.
So then the second thing we saw was this massive wave on the wall, which showed different heights of tsunami waves that have hit different places. The highest was 90 feet tall. It actually touched the roof of the building, and you had to look up like this at it. So
another part of the example of a village in Africa, there were these little homemade tents that said 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. People lived in them. It had a gas container that said people in the village have to carry a container 5 miles on their way to water and 5 miles over their head back. The container full weighed 30 pounds.
We saw that some people had to live in these garbage dumps. So they had to stay in garbage cans, boxes, and any other things that they could find. They were non-stop covered in other people's garbage, and they were very commonly sick.
We saw that some people have to eat. It is almost like you wouldn't eat it as a snack. The problem is that unhealthy eating routines is stunning to their growth and killing their ability.
And we learned a lot about countries that we never really hear about at MTI. And I think we were surprised how badly it actually is.
Thanks for listening to both of us.
Morning. My name is Spencer Albrecht, and I'm going to be talking about Portland Rescue Mission. And this was mostly a place where people could stay and help up, and they helped out to get their feet on the ground. And the first thing we did is that we split into groups. My group was Lisa, Sam, and I. We sorted through donated clothes, and then after that, we went over to the shelving area and we sorted a bunch of the various food items that were donated. And then came the fun part. Chase and I got to go into the freezer and put in stack the apricots that were donated, and then we also got to put in the sparkling water in their refrigerator. And then the last thing we did there was we got to sit down and eat with some of the people who were staying there. And I thought that was really cool because we got to hear interesting stories from people who we've never been able to meet before, and people who we've never talked to, and then we got to share stories.
Hi, I'm Lizzie Knumber. And I'm Sadie Lindemann. One of the places we worked at on the mission trip was Birch Community Service. Birch was a place where working poor would be able to get food needed for their families. Birch was a system where the people would learn financial skills and be able to work a certain amount of hours and get an amazing supply of food for them to share with their families. The goal at Birch was to teach working poor how to work hard and how to use their money properly. The work that is done at Birch is unbelievable.
While we were at Birch, we generously helped in the kitchen. Other members of our group helped sort clothes and different food and drink items. In the kitchen, we helped take huge amounts of bulk and divide it into smaller amounts so that it could be put on the shelves. We were fortunate to be able to visit and volunteer at Birch 2 days. The first day, we helped pack granola. We had around 20 boxes, in which was about 10 pounds of granola. We had to scoop out the granola into smaller bags. Then we had to tie and put them in crates. That would be brought out to the shopping area. We packed a lot of granola and in such a quick time. The main worker at Birch said that what we had gotten done in 2 hours would have taken them 3 or 4 days. The workers had to keep bringing us more bags because we kept running out of bags.
The second day we went to Birch, we helped in the kitchen again. Renee was one of the volunteers and she helped us out. She was so pleased with how much work we could do in such a short amount of time. We helped pack more food. Some of the food we helped pack was cookie crumbs, Big Newton bars, frozen enchiladas, and other food products. It was a very cool place and a great learning experience. We were so grateful to get the opportunity to serve God and help others. If we ever got the chance, we would love to go back and help pack more food so that others can get meals for their families and themselves.
Good morning. Today I'll be sharing with you about the Oregon Food Bank. The Oregon Food Bank is a part of Feeding America. Just like the Parks and Food Bank, it is part of South Dakota's Food Bank, which is part of Feeding America. Their mission is to eliminate hunger and its root causes because no one should be hungry. Partners with local donations to provide food for over 200 relief agencies. When we entered the food bank, we had to sanitize, which means wash our hands, so we were all clean so we didn't infect the apples with anything we might have had. They explained to us that we would be packing apples with 5 other groups who were serving there too. When we got in there, they turned on the radio where we could join together singing.
We met several elementary kids who were serving. They were also excited to serve, and it was energized us to serve with them. After we finished a crate of apples, they took us on a tour of the warehouse. The warehouse was bigger than Walmart and Sam's Club combined. Most of their food is donated except the eggs, bread, and milk. They have to buy all that stuff. All their produce they grow there. They have a huge garden that all the volunteers work in. Portland Food Bank has an ambitious goal. They are dedicated to ensuring that no one goes hungry today, that Oregon becomes the first state without hunger, and that people experiencing hunger are at the center of all we do today. Hi, I'm Sam Kinneberg. I'm Cindy Wickersham. I'm Amber Albrecht. We're going to share a little bit about the Union Gospel Mission, which is also called UGM. Our group visited UGM 3 times. This was our favorite location that we visited. The Union Gospel Mission serves breakfast, a snack, and supper. Most of the food was donated and was very high quality. We would go through the boxes of food and make sure it was in good condition. If it was, we would put it on a tray. One thing that was interesting was that we had to grind the coffee in the morning, which we hadn't done before. The people who wanted food would wait outside until the doors opened, and then they would get in line and pick out which food they wanted, and we would grab it for them. Then they moved further down the line and they could have water, Kool-Aid, or coffee. They could go through the line as many times as they wanted.
One of the things that makes UGM unique is that they accepted everybody into their facility. This was important for some people because it was their last hope and their only source of food for the day because they couldn't stay in a special home. In the afternoon, UGM passed out clothing and products. They had clothes like shirts, pants, shoes, hats, scarves, and ties. Some of the products they had included shampoo, dental floss, and Band-Aids.
One thing that stood out to us was that some of the workers had been addicted or homeless at some point in their lives and had come out of it and came back to work there. It was part of their addiction program's work therapy. One of the workers we met that had been homeless himself at one point was named Pete, and he left us with some lasting memories. Pete was in charge of us most of the time we were there and was always helpful and happy. Pete was very welcoming as well as the other volunteers. We felt safe at UGM and knew that the workers were watching out for us even though they barely knew us. The Union Gospel Mission was our favorite stop in Portland, and we are forever thankful for this opportunity.
My name is Brady Albrecht, and my favorite part of the mission trip was interacting with the people we got to meet. One way that we got to interact with the people we met was the people at Kaleo gave us 2 sack lunches. One would be for ourselves, and one would be for somebody we met along our walk. In this sack lunch was a sandwich and an orange and maybe a granola bar. Our goal was not only to give away our lunches, but also to sit down and try and have a conversation with this person. We traveled in groups of 3 or 4 trying to give our lunches away. We did this activity on 2 different days, and I'm going to tell you what it was like on both days. One problem that we encountered as a group was not everybody we gave our lunches to wanted to have a conversation with us. They were more interested in our lunch and wanted to be left alone. But on both of my attempts, I was able to sit down with somebody and have a genuine conversation with them. The first time we went out, I was in a group with Tony and Chase. We walked up to this man sitting on a bench on the edge of the river watching the geese. He didn't seem to have too many problems. He was just minding his own business watching the geese. This man never told us his name, but he did try to give us some advice. He said that in his past, he made a mistake by hanging out with the wrong crowd, and he encouraged us to avoid making that mistake. The second time we went, I was in a group with Jane and Maggie. This time we walked up to a man in a wheelchair named Carlos. Carlos and his dog, Toby, were enjoying their day in the park. Carlos told us he ended up in a wheelchair by working construction. He made a fall and was paralyzed from the waist down. While we were eating, Carlos's friends Freddie and Lyle joined us and chatted for a while. Each one of them told us their story. Lyle works part-time at a potato farm in North Dakota. Freddie came from Hawaii because of a girl. Freddie told us that moving to Portland was the best and worst decision of his life. He said it was the best decision of his life because he had been dealing with substance abuse issues, and moving to Portland, he didn't have that substance anymore, so he was easier to quit. But it was the worst decision of his life because he left all of his friends and family behind. He said that some friends you can make, but some friends you will miss forever. Overall, I think handing out these lunches had the greatest impact on me over all of the activities we did, because I saw that life is very different outside of Parks in South Dakota.
I hope you can see and hear the reasons I am so proud of these students and how much if you've known them over the last few years, that how much they have grown. Even just getting up and speaking back in April versus today, it's a little bit different. They're a little more comfortable, and they're really a lot more excited about the things that they've done. Today is the first Sunday of the month, and on that, in our church, we celebrate communion. Communion is a time where together as a church, as a body of Christ, not as a building, we proclaim Christ's death together. We proclaim that this is what we believe in together. And so I'd like us just to take a time of silence and just make sure our hearts are in the right place for communion this morning. And then after that few moments of silence, we'll begin with the institution.